The archives are getting started. I post these archives on YouTube, and I will I'll shoot a link up to the forum when it's posted. It's kind of a lengthy process to post like an hour-long video to YouTube, so it'll probably be sometime like late tonight before the archive is ready. So hopefully you'll have it to view tomorrow. Okay, so small group today. Let me just I'm going to repost the chat message that I posted earlier to make sure that people understand the thing about joining the call via voice over IP or phone. How many are on this call? Just Donna? There's two others looking at the screencast, but the screencast by itself isn't really the complete package, because you need to hear what's going on too. Okay, so let's get started into the demo. This week we last week we configured some back-end stuff. We got backups running, and we configured the initial basic identity stuff on your site, like the site name, the slogan, stuff like that. This week we covered, through the lessons, we covered blocks in Drupal, which are pretty important, and nodes. Nodes in Drupal are the primary nuggets of content on your site. So pretty much the whole, one way to look at it is that the whole Drupal backend database revolves around this concept of nodes. Nodes are these pieces of content that will get displayed on your site, and the front end display might be a simple page like an about page, or it might be more like a blog format, or it might be a calendar. We'll do calendars and news feeds in later lessons, but all that stuff, those pieces of content, whether it's a news article or an event in your calendar, they start with nodes. If you're familiar with other content management systems like WordPress, sometimes I get in trouble for mentioning WordPress, and sometimes I get in trouble for not mentioning WordPress, so I'm just going to mention it. If you're familiar with WordPress, the corollary in WordPress to this Drupal concept nodes is, I think they're called posts or pages. So in WordPress you're creating posts and pages. In Drupal the umbrella term is nodes, and nodes can have different content types, which we'll get to I think next week. Out of the box, the content types available are basic page and article. If you install the blog module, you'll have another content type for blog posts. We'll get into that more next week. Okay, so real quick, let's create our first node on this demo site. This site, I basically haven't touched this site since the call last week, so we're picking up right where we left off last Thursday. So I'm going to click the Add Content button, and I need to choose which content type I want to add. Like I said, we'll get more into content types I think next week, but there's a couple available to you right out of the box. I'm going to add a basic page, and I'm going to call this my About page. So the title is About. If I want to use the WYSIWYG, I can switch over to full text, full HTML format, and type some content. Here is my About page. And we can put anything we want here, images, some widgets or, whatever we want to make this page look awesome. And once I'm happy with the content that goes on this page, I can simply publish it. So it's very quick, very easy to publish content in Drupal. You have some options to publish the content or leave it unpublished. Sometimes it's handy to leave the content unpublished if you're like staging the content, or if your content is going through some sort of editorial process internally. Sometimes it's handy to leave the content unpublished. We're going to publish it right away. I have some other options here in the node settings, like I can add the node to a menu, and here I can define the menu link title. So let's say I want the page title to be about my library, but I feel like that title is way too long for the menu, so I just want the menu to read about. They don't need to match up. Oops. And then the description is what shows up when you hover over the text. So this is my about page. This is good for search engine optimization and for disability accommodation for screen readers and such. The description is, well, you can think of it as like metadata about the link itself. And I can choose where I want the menu item to go within the menu. I want the parent, I want this to be a root level menu link. If I wanted to nest this under another link, I could, but I don't want to do that. Okay, welcome Robert, who just joined. Okay, so I can nest the menu items, but in this case I don't want to. I can decide whether I want comments to be open or closed. So typically for like an about page, you don't really want comments. I find that if you have comments open on a site, and if the site gets any kind of traffic at all, people are going to post comments on every little page, and you don't always want that. I mean, a lot of the comments that you would get on your about page are going to be like customer service type considerations, and you just want people to be able to contact you via email. If like on your about page, if you had comments open, people would leave weird comments about how like there's trash in the parking lot or something, and you don't really want that. So I'm going to leave comments closed. And there are some other things that I can configure on my node settings, like I can define the URL alias that I want to use. So I'm going to leave this blank for now to show you what it looks like by default, and then I can come back and create a custom alias. I can turn revisions on or off. I usually like to leave these off by default and then turn them on as necessary. If you always have revisions turned on, every time you edit the node, the backend database gets populated with another record. And so if you're editing the about page like all the time, every time you do that, the database gets a little bigger. So I use revisions sometimes. Sometimes it's handy, but most of the time I just leave it off by default. And one more thing I can do to my node settings, I can change the author to somebody else. So in the case of like a news article or a blog post, if you're authoring the content on behalf of somebody else and you want their byline to show up instead of yours, you can just change the name on the authored by field. But the content of this field has to be the content of this authored by field has to be an actual user in the Drupal site. So you can't just make up a random name. It has to be a real user. And you can change the authored on date. So this is handy a lot of times if you need to date something retrospectively. You can. Otherwise, the date will just be a timestamp of the time that you hit publish. Okay, so I've blown through all these node settings. This is just something that you're going to get used to after working with Drupal for a while, but I think I've given a pretty good overview at least. Now that I've created some content and I've edited my settings how I want them, I can just hit save. And because I created this about my library page and added it to the menu, I have instant access to this page. So it's like instant publishing, just like your blog or whatever. It's not like you have to stage the content and then refresh the server or something like that. It's just instantly there. And then editing content is almost as simple as creating content. Because I'm logged in here and my user role has access to edit all content, on this node I have an edit tab. So if I made a mistake or if I want to go back and add something else, I just hit the edit tab. And I'm taken back to that same form that I saw before, where I can just edit the content, make some edits, and hit save. And my edits show up instantaneously. So I mentioned that we can edit the URL aliases of this content. Right now the path is node/1 because it's the first node that I created. So its node ID is 1. The second node I create will be node/2 and so forth. So this is a good machine identifier this is a good database identifier for the nodes. They just all have a numeric identifier. But I want my front end website to have friendly URLs. So I can set up an alias, and I just want this to say simply about. Hit save, and the URL you can see is changed to about. Okay, so that's basic. That's the basic idea of creating nodes. Any questions at this point? Just type them into the chat area. I think I heard on the conference, on the voice portion of the conference, I think I heard 2 blips, like 2 people coming into the conference, and there should be 3 of you out there, so somebody hasn't joined, but that's okay. Okay, no questions so far. Now let's take a look at blocks. Blocks are little snippets of text or code that you can place in various regions on the site. So the node is, every node has its own URL. It is essentially a page on your site. The blocks are little snippets of text or code or something that you're going to place on those pages, usually in the periphery of the page, in the sidebar, header, or footer. Usually not in the main content area, because the main content area is where the node content goes. So for this week's lessons, we created one block, I think it was just one block for your library hours, or you could have done anything else you wanted to, but most of us are at physical libraries, so you have some kind of opening hours, so it seemed like a convenient thing to do. Okay, so to create a block, you just go to Structure, Blocks, and add a block. And the block needs a title. No, well, I'm sorry, it doesn't need a title. For this demo, we are going to have a title, My Libraries Hours. It does need one required field for the block is the description. This is the description that the administrators see on the back end. So hours block. It doesn't need to be the same as the block title. And then the block body can have, again, like any kind of text or HTML. So I can flip on my WYSIWYG by going to the full HTML format, and I have access to some of these buttons. Monday through Friday. Let's say the library is open from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then Saturday and Sunday, the library is open from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. So it's a very simple piece of text or HTML that my block will contain. And then the block needs to have, in order for the block to show up on a page somewhere, it needs to be set in one of the regions. So the theme layer, the Drupal front-end skin, the theme, defines several regions. So depending on what theme you're using, the regions can change. But usually the regions will be like header, footer, main content area, left sidebar, right sidebar. This default theme, Bartik, has several additional themes. These are like smaller columns that you can use. I think these are in the header, and the footer has like 4 columns, so you can space out your content horizontally in the footer. You can just play with this and see what happens, but for now I'm going to put my hours block in the second sidebar. This is the right sidebar, and I want the block to show up on every page. If I only wanted it to show up on one page, I could just define which page I wanted it to show up on. So if I only wanted it on the About page, I could just type in About. But I want it to show up on every page. So I'm happy with all these settings, and I will click Save Block. And now let's go to my home page and look. So here is the block that I just created. It's in the second sidebar, the right sidebar. And if I go to the About page, the block is there as well. So blocks are really handy for creating this sort of like, I'll use the word peripheral again. I usually consider it like peripheral content. It's not part of the main structure of the page. It's something that you hang somewhere else. You can put more than just text and HTML in a block. Blocks are also really handy for embedding widgets on your site. The text formats, the input formats that are available to me now are full HTML. Well, let's go to the block. Let's just add another block. Let's say I wanted to add a Twitter widget. I thought this would be a nice demo. So I have my widgets configurator tab up here open. The text formats available to me now are filtered HTML, full HTML, and plain text. These text formats will filter out the widget code. So if I wanted to add a widget, the first thing I need to do is make sure that I have a text format that will allow the widget JavaScript code. So one handy way to do that is to enable the PHP filter module in Drupal. This is not one of the modules that I had you guys enable originally, but if I want to add this snippet of JavaScript, I can enable the PHP filter module. The PHP filter will allow me to write some PHP code, and also, it just so happens, JavaScript. This module is not something that you want to grant liberal permissions to use, because this kind of thing can really wreck your site if somebody writes some bad PHP code, and then it's like a real pain to correct it. But you know, I know what I'm doing here today, so I'm going to enable the PHP module, and this will give me the ability to embed my Twitter widget on the sidebar. Any questions about this so far? Does this make sense to you? The idea of the input filters that are going to filter out things like PHP and JavaScript unless I enable the PHP module, which will allow that extra code. Does that make sense? Okay, yes, thanks, good. Okay, so let's go back to our blocks admin page, and let's add that Twitter block. I'm going to leave the title blank this time because I think the Twitter widget doesn't really need a title, but it does. The block itself needs a description, so let's call it Twitter widget. And I want to flip over to my new text format PHP code. No WYSIWYG here because I'm writing code, not HTML. I have this Twitter widget started here. I'm using the Oak Park, Illinois Twitter account. They're a good client of mine, so I'm sure they won't mind if I use their Twitter. It says please provide the Twitter. This is new. This new way of creating widgets. Oh, here we go. Enter the domain of the site where you'll be. Oh, okay. So there's some kind of security thing here. This widget configurator is brand new. So I need to tell Twitter which domain I'm going to use this widget on. And now I can create the widget, and it's going to give me some code down here. So I'm going to copy the code to my clipboard and paste it here. And then let's say I only want this on my About page. I will tell the block to go only on the About page, and let's say I want this one on the first sidebar. And then hit save. Now let's go to my About page and see how it looks. Okay, cool. So here's the Twitter widget showing up here on the first sidebar. It looks good. I don't think I like this extra spacing here. That's not something I can control right now. That spacing is set in the CSS, in the cascading style sheets, which are part of the theme, the site theme, and I don't have access to any of that through this normal browser interface. So in order to have access to the CSS files, I'd have to get into the server and start editing code there. So when you're developing a new site, it's important, I think, to try to separate in your mind the content and the functionality from the presentation layer, from the front end. So for now, while I'm developing the site, I'm just going to ignore this little bit of padding that I'll eventually remove. Okay, so I like how this is looking. One thing I don't really like right now is that this search form is in the sidebar. Let's say I'd rather have this in the header. I can just let me go back. I think I've sped through that a little too fast. So here I am. Well, let's go back to the about page. Here I am looking at my block configuration, and I decide that I don't really want this block, this search form, in the sidebar. I'd rather have it in the header. So I can edit that setting by hovering over the block, and I see this little gear icon. I can click the little gear icon and then hit configure block. That gear icon thing in Drupal, that is called a contextual link. So different modules can add different contextual links to that block. They all pertain to like the configuration of the block, basically. Okay, so that search form setting, I said I didn't want it in the first sidebar. Let's say I want it in the header. I'll hit save. Okay, somebody just joined. Welcome, Michael. I'm going to paste my little note about how to join the voice chat real quick. Hang on. Okay. So where are we? I just moved that search bar to the header instead of the sidebar, and instantly here it is. It's moved, and you can see there's a pretty minor but noteworthy design change when I move the block from the sidebar to the header. The background of the form got a little bit blue, and when it was in the sidebar, it had that gray background behind it, and that's disappeared. So the same block can have a different look and feel to it when it's in a different header, and that's all determined again in the CSS. And for the most part, we're not going to touch that during this class. Okay, so is this making sense so far? Does this sound good? Any questions about what we've gone over so far? Okay, cool, thanks, Mitzi. Okay, now let's talk about the Drupal homepage. Okay, so cool. I think that must have been Michael who just joined the audio session. Welcome. You're muted, so I can't hear you. That's just I mute the people because otherwise, your dog's going to be barking in the background, or your kids are going to be screaming. I don't know, and it just creates a lot of feedback. Okay, so you guys are muted, but you can hear me. So we have, at this point, created the About page. We added it to the menu. We added a couple blocks, including this Twitter widget. And Michael, just to save you some time later, when you add things like widgets to the... We already went over this, but when you add things like widgets to your content in Drupal, you can't use the normal like full HTML or filtered HTML text format. You need a more liberal input filter, and so in our case we just turned on the PHP filter module, and that gives us more access to code that would normally be filtered out. The module is called PHP format or PHP filter, but it also allows, in addition to PHP, it allows JavaScript. Okay, so we created the About page, we created a couple blocks. Something I don't like here is that the About link is before the Home link. I think it would be a little better if we put the About link to the right of the Home link. So I can go into Structure, Menus, Main Menu, List Links. And I just have this really simple drag and drop interface for reordering the menu items. So I put Home first and then click Save. So now it should, yeah, the change is reflected immediately. So now I can see that the Home link is to the left of the About link. Actually, I usually tell people, clients, that they don't need a Home link on their menu. That's, everybody knows that they can just click the logo and get back to the home page. And people who don't know that, people who haven't learned that from experiencing the rest of the internet, can usually deduce very quickly that that's what they need to do. So I usually just tell people that the Home link is a waste of space. Of course, if you're paying me to build a website and you insist on having a Home link, I'm not going to argue too much. But for our little demo site, I'm going to just disable the Home link, and I did that just by untoggling it from that menu admin section. So cool. I've accomplished a couple things today. I've created an About page and a couple blocks. The last thing we're going to do, at least as part of like the structured office hours session that I had in mind, the last thing we're going to do is create a home page. So right now I still see this welcome to Sean's demo Drupal site as my home page. But that's not good enough. I need to create a real homepage for my site. So I mentioned a couple different options for creating a homepage in Drupal. It's actually like it's a lot more confusing. It seems to me that creating the Drupal homepage is a lot less intuitive than you might just assume. So let's go over these couple of different options. The first, what I think is the most basic, natural Drupal way of populating a homepage is to start creating content and promoting the content to your homepage, which will create like a blog roll type display. So the content just starts feeding into the homepage, just like blog posts feed to the front page of a blog. So that's Drupal's most basic answer to how should I create my homepage. You create your homepage by just promoting your blog posts to the front page. So let's demo that real quick. I'm going to add content, and this time I'm going to add an article instead of a basic page because the content that gets promoted to the homepage is like newsy content. The article content type is made for that sort of newsy content. This is, I have a title. This is a new news story. Some body content goes here. Out of the box with this article content type, you have some tags. So I'm going to just provide a couple tags. These are comma separated values, so you can have, because they're comma separated and not like space separated, you can have multiple words. So like, if I wanted the tag to be class demo, you know how sometimes with tagging interfaces you can't have like a 2-word tag. Well, that's not the case with this. So you can have more than one word for the tag. And then I have some body content. I can upload an image if I want to. I could also upload an image straight to the body field by clicking this image button. Down here, when I have this image field down here. This is different from embedding an image in the body because the image is its own field in Drupal. It has its own database structure on the back end, and it's handled differently because it's its own. It is its own structure on the back end. We can take advantage of a lot more like image handling stuff in the theme layer, and also like the modules have more access to manipulating the image. The most common example of why that's handy is that when I upload an image in this image field rather than embedding it in the body, Drupal can automatically create little like thumbnails or full screen versions automatically. So I upload one image and Drupal can create a lot of different styles for that image. Anyway, that's kind of beyond what I wanted to demo today. Okay, so let's look at my publishing options. I want this news article to be published and promoted to the front page. So by promoting it to the front page, it's going to automatically post to the front page, just like a blog. And there it is. And there's this is the full post. This is the full node. And now if I go to the home page, I can see the teaser display with my tags and byline and the read more link that takes me to the full post. And let's go back to the home page. Clicking the title also takes me to the full post. And then if I create another one, this is another news story. News demo. Oh yeah, when the tags are, after the tag has been initially inserted into the database, when I start typing on the next the next time I create an article and I start typing, Drupal's going to do a quick search of what's already there, and it's going to provide this helper. So I just started typing demo, and my previously inserted tag pops up as a suggestion. So the node should have a title, some tags maybe, and a body, some body text, and I want to make sure it's published and promoted to the front page, and then I'll hit save. And let's go back and look at the front page. So now the first one got pushed down to second place, and the newest one is at the top. So this is like the same thing that you've seen on thousands of blogs. And this is fine. This is one way to create front page content for your Drupal site. But typically for more robust or dynamic websites, you're going to want to do something a little more special. So I've never actually used this method in a production site. It's a handy example, and I think it's important to learn because it's part of Drupal core. But I've never actually used it. If you have like a very simple website that, like a very simple library site that you want to get up and running really fast, maybe this is a good idea. There's nothing wrong with this approach, but I've never actually used it. Another way to create homepage content is to create a static homepage So I'm creating a node that will eventually be my home page. And I want to give it a title. Or let's make the title something like "Welcome to my library online." I don't know. And then the homepage content goes here. So here, if you wanted to have some static info on your homepage, you could put some images, maybe like I don't know, a link to your Overdrive site or Overdrive account, whatever could go here. And this is going to be my static homepage. So let's make sure it's published. No menu. I don't need to set a URL because the URL will be masked anyway as soon as I set it to my homepage. So I'm going to hit save. Here's the node I just created. Now I need to tell Drupal that I want to make that node my home page. So the default front page should be node/4. That's the node that I just created. And additionally, I can edit how many of those blog-like posts I want on the home page. I don't want any of them, actually, so I'm just going to unpromote all of them. Or I said that wrong. Because I set this node as my home page, those blog posts just disappear. Okay, so those are two ways of creating a Drupal homepage. I usually lean toward the second, and then I embellish this static homepage with extra stuff. Actually, though, just to kind of back up and talk a little bit about process, this idea of how to create the homepage, for me, the conversation doesn't start with an overview of the tools available to me within Drupal. The conversation starts with my designers who are going to design what they think should go on the homepage for marketing reasons, and then we'll figure out a solution for how to handle it. But it usually will end up starting with a static page like I just created, and then we'll add stuff to it with blocks and views and so forth. Like I said, I never really have ever used that first method of just promoting blog posts to the homepage. That seems fairly limited to me. I mentioned the Oak Park, Illinois Public Library earlier. Let's just take a quick tour of their homepage. We can just dissect the anatomy of this homepage, just FYI. So there's this spot here with the this front page slideshow thing. That's a view with some jQuery stuff going on to make the slides cycle through. We'll talk about views, I think, like in 2 weeks, but this is basically a block with some dynamic content in it. Similarly, we do have this news feed, but again, this is a view. This is not part of that core Drupal promote to front page option. This is something that we created especially for the homepage. And then we have this like new arrivals thing where you see some book covers and content from the print collection. And then there's some more blocks, like we have like a little login block for their ILS and search options for searching the catalog and the website, and a little chat widget for IM reference. So anyway, this is an example of a more complex homepage where the basic Drupal option doesn't really give us enough to work with. So we had to just kind of craft our own solution. But this conversation started actually with the designer deciding what should go on the homepage, not us as developers looking at our toolkit. Does that make sense? Are there any questions about this? Like I said, it seems like it would be a really simple matter, but how to create the homepage for some reason can just get kind of confusing. I don't know. Oh, the sound cut out when I was describing what was behind the feature billboard feature. And I assume you're talking about this, the Oak Park Public Library slideshow thing. This is basically a dynamic, it's a block. So we've talked about Drupal blocks. This is a block with some dynamic content. The dynamic content is provided by views. The views module is a very powerful way of creating basically database queries. So, and we'll talk about views in a couple weeks, but the views module lets us pull out content from within the nodes. In our case, we're pulling out this image, we're querying the database to get this image and the title and the teaser. And then also there's a URL component that we're querying because each of these slides is a link that goes somewhere. So there's basically 4 fields that we're querying out of Drupal, out of the database: the image, the title, the teaser, and the one you don't see is the URL where the link should go. And we're telling Drupal to return 4 results out of our filter criteria, and then all that stuff is taken and made into a nice slider cycle display with some jQuery. So it's views. In short, it's a block. The block is a view, and the view pulls some stuff out of the database, and then the presentation layer is jQuery to make all the cycling, the slideshow happen. It's not as complex as I just made it sound, but it's a fairly common component for websites like this. Yeah. Any other questions or anything? That's kind of all I wanted to demonstrate today. I didn't necessarily have anything else in mind. I think I gave you a couple little extra things to think about. Like I demoed how to embed that Twitter widget. That's only on the About page. This is kind of outside of the scope of what we've done so far in the lessons, but otherwise, I didn't really have anything else I wanted to demo today. Do you have anything you want me to demo or discuss before we leave? We've got about 10 minutes. Okay. Thanks, Donna. Yeah. We'll just leave a little early today. Okay, so I will post the archive on YouTube, like I said, and I will post a link to the forum where you can find this if you want to go over this stuff again. Okay, thanks, guys. I'm gonna sign off now. Talk to you soon.